Well, welcome back to Talking with Tech. I'm here. This is Chris Bouguet, and I'm here with Rachel Madel. How you doing, Rachel?
I'm doing really good. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm good. So it is that time of year again. It's the beginning of the school year. We've been saying this now for weeks, right? But I guess it's not the beginning anymore. We're probably into the first month, 2 months. And so a lot of IEP meetings have been happening. Have you had any experience going to IEP meetings either recently or in the past?
Yes, I have. And I'm like, IEP meetings are so hard because I feel like at least the ones that I go to now that I'm in private practice, they're never good. Like they're good if I'm not there because it means that like everything's fine and they can just kind of report on progress. But the IEP meetings that I go to now are very contentious and I'm there for a reason, and it's to either prove that this child can do AAC and needs it in their IEP, or this child is making such, substantial progress that they should continue to be mainstreamed. So it feels like IEP meetings are not good if you're taking your private SLP along.
Yeah, that's too bad. I really strive to think that as someone who works in the public school, that we're reaching across the aisle, if you will, and we're doing this, handshake with the private speech therapist to be like, okay, how do we get on the same page here so that it's not this contentious, fight, that it is a more collaborative effort. And so that when people come to the IEP meeting, they're actually sitting at the table with each other. There's a spirit of we're not fighting against each other. We're here for the child in the best interest. And we had this kind of a same, maybe philosophy of how we should do things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. My mama always says, catch more flies with honey. And that's always how I've approached IEP meetings, before I even was in private practice. But it does me no good to come into an IEP meeting and isolate myself from the school team and, not collaborate with them. So it's really, but it's a hard line because parents bring private SLPs to the meeting to have their back, right? So, and it's always kind of this school versus home fight, it feels like. And first of all, I'm not a fighter. I don't like confrontation. I get along with most people. So that's just not my personality. But it's really hard because you have to help support your client, but also try to maintain a good relationship with the school and the team. Yes. Because we need to all work together and we need to be doing things that are consistent across home and school. So it's sometimes a really tough position to be in, but I'm constantly, when the SLP is reporting on progress, you'll see me nodding my head and smiling, because it's just like, that's one thing that I can do at least, to show like, yes, I completely agree. And when it's my turn to kind of say, here's what's going on at home, I'm constantly saying, I'm seeing the same things as, insert school SLP name. The school SLP, made a really good point in that to just really try to reinforce this is not an us against you guys mentality, at least that I'm bringing to the table, because, it only hurts to go into something, with your fists up. And a lot of times it's not even necessary. Schools are for the most part trying to, work with the family. And it's just, we don't need to come up with fists blazing right away, always.
So you just gave a bunch of good strategies right there about how to complement your professional counterparts. So I'm going to throw out another one, but let's see if we can come up with some more practical tips, both for the teachers that are going into the IEP meetings and the parents. So here's one, kind of a rule of thumb for me. I try and do this every time at an IEP meeting. It's not always practical. It doesn't always work, but it's the mentality I have when I walk through the door is I'm going to sit next to the parent. They're going to be on my right or they're going to be on my left, but I'm not going to be across the table from them. Now, that's not always the case, but I have that in mind. Like, I want to be next to you, not across from you.
And that's really funny, actually, because I tend to not sit next to the parents because I'm kind of coming in on the parents' side. But I think physically, I don't want to be right next to them because then it just feels more like, us versus them. And I don't want that. I want it to kind of be mixed and mingled. So it's really funny that you said that because I definitely, it doesn't always work out that way, right? But it's nice.
Let's be clear, right? I'm thinking of it as school perspective, right? So when you're the parent coming into the school room and I'm there, I want to be sitting next to you, as opposed to I'm the private therapist in the situation, right? So
yeah, exactly. So it's funny that we're doing like the exact opposite.
Yeah. Well, the exact opposite, but exactly the same, right? Like you
Yeah.
see, yeah, that's so cool. That's another one too, which I think is something that happens, I think, frequently is that the school team has already placed themselves in the room. They're physically in the room. So now the people coming in are walking into this room that is already filled with people, as opposed to we're all going to hang out in, let's say, the office or the hallway or wherever. And then we all walk in together, which again seems like such a simple thing, but it totally, I think, decreases the intimidation factor. Totally, it makes it more comfortable.
You know what? Something else that I really appreciate. I was in an IEP meeting just recently, actually, in the last 6 months, and the mom brought in photos of her daughter, where she started when she started school. So a picture of her, 3 years ago, and every year a different picture. And, it seemed like a very small thing, but it was just like, we kind of talk so high level at IEP meetings, right? We talk about the child and everything that they're doing or sometimes not doing. And we forget, like, it's a little kid, right? And I think that the picture really helps just make it more personal. Like, here's the little girl that we're talking about. Because if it's a young child, they're not in the IEP meeting. I realize that, the older kids sometimes are encouraged to participate in their IEP meetings. But I think that small act was so powerful. And we kind of like passed around pictures of this little girl and really talked about all the progress that she's made. And it was a really positive thing before the meeting got started.
Yeah, so that is a place of growth for me, Rachel. Let me just explain that, because I've heard that strategy before, right? And parents would bring the photos into a meeting occasionally, and I would get, honestly, a little insulted. Like, I know your kid. We work with your kid all the time. I know who they are. I don't need to see a picture of them. Just 5 minutes ago, I was out in the hallway playing with them. You know what I mean? But then I realized, but that's because I know the kid. And so often in an IEP meeting, there are people who don't know the kid, meaning they know them on paper, but they don't know who they are. It's an administrator maybe that is from the central office that maybe only has met them once or twice. You know what I mean? And what you specifically said, Rachel, that I really love is that parents brought in multiple pictures. So there's this breadth of where they started to where they are now, so you can see this growth. And that is not always the case for me, where I've only know who they are now. I don't know who they were back then. So like I said, I've opened my mind to it at first because I was originally like, what? But now those two ideas, that there's other people that the pictures are for, and that I can see this whole breadth of who the student was, it really has opened my mind to seeing those pictures in a different light.
Absolutely. Another thing that I really try to impress upon clinicians that I'm supervising or grad students is that we get so focused when we're writing these present level summaries to only focus on what the child's not doing. Right? So it's like, oh, like, can't do this. This is challenging, difficulty with this, right? Because those are the areas that we need to strengthen. So of course, naturally we focus on those, but it's so important to talk about the positive. And I think a lot of people do this just naturally because we don't want to just talk about all the negative, but whenever I'm talking about an area of weakness or challenge for a child, I always buffer with the positive. They're so good at this. We just need a little more strength, or this is emerging. I think that we need to be really careful about the language that we're using when we're talking about kids, because we're SLPs. We do this all day long. We write these clinical notes, and it's very it feels very cold sometimes because we're just kind of writing the facts. And here are the facts. They can't answer WH questions, or they can't follow, two-step directions. But this is a child, and, we're working with parents, and we're talking to parents about their little pride and joy. And so we have to be really sensitive. And so many times I go into homes after an IEP meeting, and the moms, especially the moms, are so deflated. They're just like, this was just an annual reminder that my child isn't where they need to be. They're so far behind, and they have so much further to go. And it really breaks my heart because, while that is true, they do have a lot of, work to do and skills to acquire. I really think that we can try to instill hope and really talk about the future and the progress that's possible. So I think that a lot of times it's really disheartening because I think the families just get really sad, and it's just, how can we try to instill that hope in parents to make sure that they feel inspired? Because if they don't feel inspired, they're not going to do what they need to do at home. They're not going to do that extra work because they feel like, what's the point?
Yeah. So you mentioned the words that we use, and I key in on those a lot when I'm reading reports and then when I'm writing my own documentation. So 2 quick strategies there that I hope are really practical. One is don't talk about what a student can't do because you don't know what they didn't. All you know is what they did. You don't know why they didn't do what they didn't do. So when you state the facts, it's what they did, not what they didn't do. A student used a 2-word utterance to express negation. That would be what the student was able to do. The second strategy I would use is to never use the word is able to. So, and just think of it this way, Rachel, like, were you able to eat today or did you just eat today? Right? Were you able to put on your pants today or did you just put on your pants today? And so often you'll see it written to was able to, which often expresses like this level of difficulty or that it took some sort of great monumental effort for them to be able to do it. And you're like, but I don't know if it took that great effort. I just know that they did it. And so I want to assume that presuming competence that we've talked about a million times on this podcast, that the student was going to be able to do it. I don't want to imply that it took some sort of monumental effort. They just did it. They're able to do it. That's a real subtle thing, but I think it's important when you're reading and you're writing reports that you're promoting not this ableistic attitude. You are presuming that a student is going to be able to do it.
No, I completely agree. And it's these small subtleties, but they can make a huge impact. And I just think that it's really important to always think through the lens of inspiring hope. Because I think that it all comes down to that. Because if people don't have hope, they give up, right? And if we don't need teachers giving up and we don't need parents giving up, we need the opposite. So the language that we use is one tool to continue to inspire hope. I was supervising a student recently, and she's like, oh my gosh, your clients love you. Like, why do they love you? Oh my gosh. And so like she started like the first like week and like, she's like, they just love you. And she came back to me afterwards, after, maybe a month or 2. She's like, I know why they like you so much. It's because at the end of every session, you're super optimistic and you always talk about the positives. She's like, you do talk about what we're working on, but there's always this breath of, but I'm so excited because they're making such gains. And I thought about it and I'm like, you're right. Like I try to always celebrate the small wins, because if we're always looking at the long-term outcomes, like there's not much to get excited about sometimes, because kids sometimes make really slow progress. And I just think that if you really zero in on what a child's doing, even if it's the most minuscule thing, if you see one micro step in the right direction, like we need to celebrate that. And celebrate that after the session. I feel like a lot of times, I used to work in a private practice in Philly, just doing part-time stuff. And it was really sad because everybody would go in after the session, all the SLPs and the OTs, and everyone would go out to the waiting room and talk to the parents about like, this is what we did and this is how it went. And I used to have this one client that was always really late. And so I would just be like waiting in the waiting room and I would just be observing. And I always was amazed with how negative it was. It was always like, so-and-so didn't do this, or they were kind of behavioral, or they weren't listening, or, and I think it's natural. It's human inclination to focus on negative things, right, that need to be fixed. But it was always so sad. And I remember from a very early on in my career being like, I'm not going to be the SLP. It's like the bearer of bad news. And I feel like it really, like, after my student, just recently kind of made me think about everything. I'm like, wow, like I really have put that into practice, which is really cool.
I think that goes hand in hand with coaching other professionals as well. So you want to give the good news to the parents. You want to make sure that there's a message of hope for them. But that same message I think, is important for the teachers to hear and all the people working with them. So just you shared a story. I'm going to share one too. Just this past week, Rachel, I was doing it was a LAMP Words for Life update training, meaning at the beginning of the school year, all the staff working with a student that's in the secondary level got together in a room for an hour, and some of them had seen LAMP Words for Life, others had not. Like the homeroom teacher was there, his job coach was there, and so we got in a room, and I just did like an hour of like, here's how it's designed, here's how it's going to work, and I left with that same idea, like, this is doable. Like, here's how you can practically implement this device in your homeroom. Here's how you can do it when you're doing, what's the job that he's working on right now? Putting mail in a mailbox. Okay. So in sorting the mail, all right, here's how you're going to implement that device. At the very end, everyone was like, they actually applauded. They were like, this is great. Oh my gosh, thank you for doing this hour, because they left with that inspiring, like, we can do this. We can implement this device. We can all work on this together. We're a big family trying to implement this and help this kid because he's worth it. And if that's what we do, we're educators. And then to get the parents on board, and like, that's what we do. We educate them, you know? It was an inspiring moment. You know?
And I think you touched on a really great point, is that sometimes we think and talk so high level. So we kind of tell people what to do, and you gave specifics. People love specific things. If you can tell somebody a very specific thing to do, they're more likely to do it because they know exactly what to do. So it's kind of like this idea of some people might call it spoon feeding, but we all like to have exactly what to do already told to us. When we start talking like, well, you can increase fine motor skills, and you can, all these things, you can enrich language environments, and all of these high level things that, yes, we could do that. But we take for granted the fact that we know how to do it. We know the specifics. We know exactly what routines to start working on and exactly how to make that happen. And parents and teachers, they don't know. And so when you can give specifics, it's like, yes, it's applause worthy.
I think you actually even have to role play it a little bit. I mean, that's exactly what I did. Is I stood up and I pretended I was in front of the mailbox, and I was like, okay, so here, you're going to be him with the communication device, and he's going to tell me, put in, because yes, he needs to learn how to put mail in a mailbox, but he's going to learn that. And then what he really needs to learn is the words put and in, and commanding someone else. And someone's always probably giving him directions what to do. How about we turn it around so he's giving us directions what to do? And I think, tying it back to an IEP meeting, those sorts of specifics help bring out the picture of who a student is and what we can do, what each member of the IEP team's role is when they're designing that IEP. Is that you can bring these little stories into and bring them back together to gel into the entire plan for how it's going to work and for an entire year.
Absolutely. And yeah, talking about specifics too, I love giving specifics on what level of support looks like. So, and that's something that I always coach when I'm doing grad students and CFYs and things like that with their clinical writing, is that like, we need to know how, like we need to paint a very vivid picture as to how we elicited this. So if another SLP picks this document up, can know exactly what worked, right? We spend hours and hours doing treatment and figuring out, oh, wow, they really respond well to this phonemic cue or, a gestural prompt, and really making it explicit on this is how they can succeed. And I think that those specifics are really helpful too, in IEPs, because if there's a new SLP that starts or, they go to a different school district, it's really important to have those specifics because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to spend hours and hours figuring out, oh, wow, phonemic cue worked great for them.
Let me ask, how do you think that should be documented? Would you put that in an IEP someplace, or do you keep it separate? And do you think it should only be text-based? Could you have multimedia? Should there be videos and pictures and a whole portfolio for a student? What are your thoughts?
I love the whole multimedia angle. I've just found that some schools are like, it's a hard no. So I love using videos because you can show in a video in 30 seconds what would take hours to write in a report or a note or an email. And so, like you said, the best way is to show. So what's better than actually showing a video of what the child's doing and how the therapist supports the child in whatever they're learning or doing? But sometimes school districts aren't into that because they're like, oh, we can't, the privacy and all these things. I think there's some late adopters when it comes to utilizing technology. Obviously, everyone who's listening to this podcast is not a late adopter, and we embrace technology with open arms. But I think that it becomes a little tricky. But I think if you are in a school district that welcomes technology and utilizing multimedia, I think it's really effective.
Yeah, I think, with the school district, one of the reasons maybe you said it's like a hard no sometimes, is because a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So and a video could be even more, I could see people possibly spinning what they're seeing in the picture, or seeing what they're seeing in the video, or what they're not seeing in the video. And I guess that could happen with text too, where you can kind of, there's a spin that happens, like a political spin and marketing, and how you can turn a perception, right? And so I think that's where sometimes administrators get nervous for those sorts of multimedia, but that doesn't take away the power of what it could show, And so it's trying to find this, I think short videos might be a way to go. Like, it doesn't have to be a long 15-minute thing of what we're doing in the classroom. It can be a specific focused strategy. Look, all I did was prompt him this way, and then all you're seeing is his hand on the device. I mean, how much trouble can we get in with showing that sort of video here? Maybe that would be a way to go. I don't know. I'm posing it as a question.
And I think that's really great, because the IEP meeting is a rare opportunity to have the entire team devoted attention to one child. And so you have the OT, and you have the behavior therapist, and you have the teachers. It's just such a great way. And that's one of the things I love the most about IEP meetings, is that we can all share strategies. And I'm constantly writing things down, like, oh, wow, like I can start helping with things that OT is working on and behavior. And it's just such a great opportunity for multidisciplinary collaboration. And I think the best way and the most efficient way is to show, not tell. So I would encourage any open-minded IEP teams, I guess, to just utilize technology. And I think it kind of starts with the parents, because I think we need parent approval, we need parent permission. And so parents are kind of the leaders, I think, because nobody wants to just like pull up a video and start showing it. I think it's a parent's role to showcase, or at least grant permission to the team. I do a lot of stuff with video, and I'm constantly, just from a legal standpoint, getting permission, just to make sure that parents are okay with this as a tool to document progress and share strategies and things like that. So I think the first step is, if you're an SLP, talking to your administrator if you're in the schools to see if it's okay. But then, of course, getting the proper documentation that you have permission from the parents, and having an open conversation with them about it.
Okay, now here's something I'd like to ask maybe the people who are listening to this podcast right now. Would you like to hear more about specifically how we write, or how people might write goals into the IEP? We probably won't do that now, Rachel, right? But maybe if people were interested about it, they could go to the Facebook group and they could leave a message saying, yeah, we would love to hear an episode or hear about writing goals. That, and then also, how do you write the device or the system into the IEP? Is it an accommodation? Do you put it in the goals? Where does it get documented? All of those sorts of questions. Would you like to hear more about that? I think that would be great to hear back from the listeners, to make sure that we're on the right page, like that people do want to hear about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So if you haven't already joined our Facebook group, it's called Talking with Tech, and you can post a question. You also can feel free to email us if you don't want to post a question to the group. We just assume everyone just wants to post all their questions and talk to us on a public forum. But if you're feeling a little shy, feel free to leave us a direct message on Facebook, so that we can hear from you, because we love supporting you guys. We're actually going to have an entire episode dedicated to your questions coming up. So if you have questions, be sure to post those in the group, or direct message us, because we would love to get your questions and answer them. We're going to, like I said, have an entire episode dedicated to it. So be sure to get your questions in stat.
Yeah, like the listener feedback episode, listener question episode. I'm really looking forward to doing that and reading all the questions again, because some of we've answered in Facebook, but then maybe answer them here on the podcast. It's going to be exciting. So, Rachel, let me tell you about this interview that we've got coming up here. So this is Eleanor Francis. You're not going to believe it, but this person was a stranger I had never met before, never heard of before. But she came and stayed in my house for 4 days and stayed with my family. We took her around to see Washington, D.C., and she's a speech therapist from Australia. She knew people and I knew people, and we knew, mutual people, and they just kind of hooked us up and said she was coming to stay here and for a little while, a little vacation, and she wanted to learn more about AAC, and she wanted to spend some time with people who are working in that field. And so she spent 4 days with me and went around with me for a day and a half to my school. I got permission for her to come. And we just had these awesome conversations over and over again about how AAC works and where she's working in Australia. And I thought, geez, over and over again, Rachel, I was like, yeah, we should be recording this. Oh, I wish I was recording this right now. This would be great for people to hear. And so we just sat down at my kitchen table and we flipped on the record button. We had a conversation about all the things we talked about. It's all about video modeling and how much AAC has blossomed in the last 4 years. You can imagine how many kids had it 4 years ago and how many kids are having it now. So we talk a little about that and so much more. Without further ado, here's Eleanor Francis. So welcome back to Talking with Tech, and I'm here today with Eleanor Francis. How are you doing, Eleanor?
I'm good, thanks, Chris.
So let's tell everybody quickly where you are right now.
So I'm at Chris's house.
What?
I've been staying with him for the last few days. He's very, very kindly put me up and shown me around DC. So I've seen all the sites, and I've been lucky enough to just follow him around for the last 2 days at work as his work as an assistive technology.
Now, have we met before? I mean, let's tell everybody why you're here,
So I'm here because I wanted to get away from the Melbourne winter and all the really grumpy, snotty children. And so I booked a ticket to come to America because I really wanted to learn more about AAC and how people are implementing it well around the world. So I met somebody in Melbourne who said, yep, you can come and stay with me. And then I've filled in all the other gaps with other assistive technology and augmentative communication people. So, yeah.
Where are you headed after Washington, D.C.?
So Washington, D.C., then I'm going to go on a little bit of a holiday. And then I'm off to Columbus, Ohio to follow around Lindsay Payton Cargill at the Bridgeway Academy for 2 weeks. And then I'm off to the PALS seminars with John Hallahan and Bruce Baker. So it's a real AAC odyssey.
That sounds like an exciting trip. So you're a speech therapist that works in a school in Australia.
Yes, so I'm a school-based speech therapist in Australia and I work in Victoria. So all the different states in Australia have slightly different school systems, but the school that I work in is a special developmental school. So everybody at my school has been diagnosed with a moderate to profound intellectual disability. And we service children from the ages of 4 to 18.
Over the last 4 days that we spent together, it's been 4 days?
Yeah,
it came on Saturday. So over the last 4 days that we spent together, we've had many conversations about augmentative communication and what the differences and similarities, and a lot of similarities, right?
So many similarities. I feel like a lot of the same challenges all over the world is what I'm sort of gathering with, communication partners, device abandonment, trying to train up all the communication partners, get parents on board, get kids on board.
Yeah, the same issues, I think, every place. Mm-hmm. One of the things we were talking about over the last 4 days is how you had some success. 4 years ago when you started, how many users of augmentative communication system did you know?
So I'm still a pretty fresh speechy. I only started at my school 4 years ago and I was a new graduate there. And when I started, we had some PECs throughout the school that was being used, but there was 2 or 3 high-tech communication devices, and from what I remember seeing, they weren't being used a whole lot, which I think is a very common story. Mm-hmm. We had a subscription to Prolo Quota Go, but it wasn't really being used. None of the staff knew how to use it. And really excitingly, earlier this year, when I had to send home notes for interest for parent AAC groups, I had to send notes home to 60 different families.
So we have 60 different families, 60 different users and so in 4 years you went from 2 to 60.
Yep, 2 to 60, which is pretty crazy, and that's still scratching the surface. So there's 118 students at my school, and we've got 60 who currently have set up with something that we think, yep, that's pretty good. We need to get you your own device. So a lot of them are using school-owned iPads, and there'd be another 20, 30 students who I just still need to figure out, and we're working on getting them something. So most of the students at my school are functionally nonverbal, and there's a place for AAC in all of their lives. So it's about finding the right thing and slowly working our way through the list.
Yeah, no, so one of the other things we talked about, because there's a hodgepodge of conversations, and now it's the whole time for the last 4 days I kept thinking, oh, we should be recording that. Oh, we should have put that in the podcast. Oh, that conversation would have been great, right? And so now we're trying to catch it all up in one.
Trying to just pick them all.
So one of them was, what does it mean to have an A student or a D student or everything in between?
So an initiative from the Victorian Education Department.
So not all of Australia, just this portion of Australia.
Yeah, so just this portion of Australia. So the education departments around Australia work quite separately from each other. So they might have a look at what the other states are doing, but generally working fairly independently. So it was identified that we had these set goals and standards for all schools across Victoria, and they suited children from starting school age, what you're expected to in prep or your first year of school, all the goals you're supposed to be achieving, all the way through to year 12. These are all what we'd expect. We have a continuum of goals that are across a wide variety of things with, your reading skills, your literacy skills, your math skills, but there was nothing for the kids that weren't yet at that level. So everybody who starts at my school is there for a reason. They're not starting prep and they have prep skills. So they identified this was an issue, and a group of schools got together and they've developed a goal bank. So there's now levels A to D, which are all the skills that you would have before you start getting into those early skills. So a level A student, most of the goals are around them showing more interest in their environment. So essentially they're just present through most activities as they currently are. A level B student is starting to use single words functionally. Level C student is stringing short sentences together that are addressing their basic needs. And a level D student is starting to express opinions about the world and express things outside their immediate environment. And once you are achieving those things, then you're moving on to the mainstream curriculum. You're moving on to the things that most people are doing in their first year of school.
Gotcha. So it's A through D, and then you move on to the mainstream.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That is a great way to... We struggle with that. At least I know I have struggled with that in the past as far as how do you assess and quantify the growth of a very young student. When I say young, I mean language age young. You know what I mean? Brown stages of... how do you do that before... when someone's like pre-Brown stage 1, and that sounds like what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah. So it's essentially we're trying to catch those kids that weren't catchable. They were just sort of sitting, being present in classrooms. They weren't being engaged in learning. So that's been a real part of this process, has been developing those skills and identifying them. So things like joint attention are being identified within the curriculum as a really important prerequisite skill for so many other learning opportunities.
Cool. That is cool. Because you're from Australia, and there was the ISAC conference just happened in Australia.
There was a little exciting
conference.
thing recently, yeah.
But you didn't get to go, did you?
Yeah, I might have caught a plane up there and really, really enjoyed all the days. So I went to 2 pre-conference workshops and then 4 days of conference. So I did
my gosh.
a full 6 days of crazy, intense, amazing professional development.
So what are some of your takeaways? What were some of the experiences you had there for Rachel and Lucas and myself and all the other people that would have loved to have been able to go and couldn't go? What are your takeaways?
So many. It was, unlike other conferences I've been to, wasn't all completely new information that made me go away shaking with fear going, what have I been doing? It was reaffirming a lot of things that I already knew. So like core vocab's not new to me anymore. So that's great. I didn't have to go away and be worried about that. So just reaffirming literacy for all. I think literacy was a really, really big focus in a lot of the workshops, and how important literacy is and how you start literacy with kids who never would have been considered for literacy. So looking at alternative pencils and the fact that you don't need to know the alphabet, you don't need to be interested in the alphabet to start seeing the cause and effect between you choose a letter, I put it down on the paper, and we talk about what you've written about. So really talking about turning thoughts into a product. That was the really big thing that they kept affirming. So this was with the Project Core people.
So Karen Erickson, David Copenhaver.
He didn't make it over, but it was all of their work together, and it was just amazing. And all the videos, and Linda Burkhart did a fantastic pre-conference workshop, which was about cortical vision impairment and physical needs, and looking at how do we access these materials for these guys, and what are the different strategies to get them engaged in learning and more interested in looking at things. I would definitely say as well, it was a great exposure to lots of, I think what you call end users.
People who are functional users of the device and be able to say whatever they want to say, however they want to say it, right?
Snug communicators.
Snug communicators, snug. Yes.
So there were so many consumers there. It was absolutely amazing. And so many presentations were done by AAC users of wide variety of devices. So there was lots of people who used Switch, lots of people who used eye gaze, lots of people with direct access. And the majority of the presentations, they pre-recorded the presentation, but they did an interactive Q&A. And that was great because you could see, like, it takes a while for you to get that message out, but that was all you. And it was really, really great. And hearing some of the stories, a lot of the stories about their journey with AAC and the barriers and successes they had, but also just learning about them as people. That I found really, really great because all their interests in these amazing things these people were doing, they're off at university and they're scuba divers. So
oh my gosh.
My new Facebook friend and one of my favourite people in the world now is Jeppe Forchhammer, and he is a member of Denmark, Isaac Denmark, and he is a huge scuba diver. He's currently travelling around Australia and he has been to 38 countries. He's got tattoos from all over the world.
That's awesome.
He's done over 50 dives. Absolutely amazing. And you just go, you're living your best life. Look at you. Look at this. And then I look at my kids at school and go, okay, how are we getting there from here? Because we've got, how many more years have we got and how are we going to get you to the point where you're going to continue on your journey?
Where you can go scuba diving. And
exactly.
You can go and do whatever you want to do.
You can tell someone I want to go scuba diving.
Yes. Yeah, well, I think one of the things I know I would miss about not going to an ISAC conference is being to be able to spend time with those people who are actually functionally using the devices. I've known in the past where I've been able to spend time with the device users. There's been so many eye-opening moments, like, for instance, a few years ago, I got to go to Australia, which I think is where we first saw each other.
I saw you. You might have seen me. I was in the audience.
But I got to spend time with Fiona Given.
She's incredible.
Who's a famous user in Australia.
And an amazing lawyer.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
And I remember having lunch next to her, with her. We were the whole table was having lunch. So it wasn't like I was just one-on-one with her. It was like we were all having lunch together. But realizing that with the way she was using her communication devices, that it wasn't just the one communication device that she was using, but it's a whole system that she uses. So that it's sometimes she uses this device and sometimes she uses this other device and sometimes she uses, or other users would use some sort of low-tech system or board, And so it really changed my mind about thinking, and I know we have these conversations frequently in our school district. We'll say we have to have a device and then we have to have a backup device. And that moment with Fiona was one that is crystallized in my head as thinking, I don't think she thinks of those systems, those different devices, as different systems. It's all one part of the same system. And I don't think she thinks of them as backups. I think she thinks of it as, this is my primary, and then this side is my alternative. So those are my alternative devices.
Yeah, which is true multimodal communication, isn't it? If we think about all the different ways we communicate, we talk about augmentative and alternative communication as being anything that you do apart from speech, then we're talking about all our gesture and our body language.
I'm nodding right now.
Yeah. Exactly, which you can't see. Great podcast chat. So one of the great things that Jeppe said, he did a poster presentation that was incredible, and he really wanted speech therapists to think about the way that they interacted with and taught people to use AAC. He wanted it to be more about a conversation, and his big takeaway point was that over 80% of what we communicate isn't with the words we say. So much more of it is how we express with our bodies. So he really, really wanted to tell people that it was really important to, when you're working with a student, you don't have to be directly across from them, but at least be on the side. Think about it as natural a communication interaction as it can be, and really teaching those kids what body language looks like so that they know what to look out for, because all the different cues that they're missing. So you're missing the joke because you're missing the intonation, you're missing all these different things that are going on. And he has an eye gaze system, which he does use, but he prefers to use partner-assisted scanning. And a lot of that is it's about the human connection, and you're much more part of a conversation when you're not looking at a screen.
Which I think is one of the big benefits also from Australia. POD, the whole system of POD, is that you're with somebody else, right? Are there any other takeaways from Isaac that stand out in your mind?
I think just watching all these really accomplished AAC users joking with each other and, telling each other off and stuff, that was amazing. So you got people ripping around the place in power wheelchairs just to go over and type something in their device to, hurl a new Australian slang at a new person that they met. I think that was really incredible. And I always love at conferences going around and seeing lots of the different vendors and a lot of the things that are on the market, because you can Google away, but it's a different thing to actually be like, oh, this is the key guard you've got. That's not going to last 2 seconds in one of my classrooms, whereas when you look online, it's hard to know. So I think that's the other thing, just having access to all this technology that you never get to hold in your hands unless you've waited 3 months to get a trial of it.
Cool. All right, going back to your school for a second, something that you do at your school that you were telling me about, again, great conversation, we need to record this, is something called MeTV, right? It's something about video modeling. Can you tell us a little bit about MeTV?
So MeTV is a really exciting thing. It started at a school called Mount Evelyn Special School, so it was Mount Evelyn TV. They're now called Yarra Rangers, and YR TV doesn't work as well, but it's still called MeTV.
Yeah, MeTV definitely has a better ring.
Yeah, so MeTV was created by Shane Spence, and it's based off the principles of video self-modelling and extended peer models, video modelling. So basically giving lots of great examples of expected behaviours that we want to see by showing peers and adults doing those behaviours. So, and it's all staff and student made. So our school has an episode every week. It's about half an hour, and it's all staff and students. There's a feature on each different department in the school. So we have a junior, a middle and a senior department. So each week they'll be highlighted. What are the middles up to this week? Let's have a look at them out of basketball.
Let me stop you there for a second and make it clarify. So junior, middle, and seniors, what are the age ranges for those groups?
So we have a kindergarten program, which would be, it used to be 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, but we now have a 4-year-old kindergarten program.
Okay.
You'd start at our school at the age of 5, and you'd be in the junior school between 5 and 9 typically. And then 10 to 14, you'd be in our middle school. And at 15, you move into the Pathways program, which is sort of transition to end of school, transition to out of school life, and that's in the senior school.
That's the seniors, gotcha.
So our seniors are out of the school most of the day. They're off on work experience, they're doing paper rounds, they're dropping off food to people. You never see them. It's very hard to catch the seniors because they're out all the time.
But they're still part of the MeTV.
Still part of MeTV, so we'll have a look at them out on work experience. You know, this is a video that such and such took when they were out. So it's a great way to build the school community, because you don't necessarily know everybody else, but you might see them they might be on the same bus as you, but it's a really nice way, and the kids love seeing themselves and each other and pointing everyone out. So it's really nice in that way too.
You were saying there's different departments?
Different department.
Like for instance, you're the numeracy witch? Is that right? And but someone else does a different character?
We have a series of, we have a few different characters, and we're all very competitive with each other. So I cover numeracy, and I'm a witch. But
you're the speech therapist.
Some witch. The idea behind me doing numeracy is that we need to talk in every subject. This is the whole thing it comes back to with, Eleanor's here, it's time to go get your talker. Or it's time for speech, it's time to do some talking. That's not what it's about. Yeah. That's not what we say. We don't say, English class is finished, I'm going to put the tape back over your mouth now and you can head off to science. Right. That's just not how it works. And so many other subjects elicit so many exciting things for language. So science, for example, science experiments, how much great vocab and how motivating is a science experiment? You want to be able to be using your talker while you're there as well. So we've got numeracy, we cover phonics. We now have a core word section. So we have Princess Cora, who does core words for us.
That's great. I love that it's not you as the speech therapist. You think they get most places.
Speech therapist.
Oh, it's a different speech therapist.
One of our other speech therapists. So we're very fortunate that we have 4 speech therapists in various roles across the school. And so one of our other lovely speech therapists is Princess Cora, and she does core words for us. And then we have staff, it's often me or some of the junior staff members will take videos of students using the words that are coming up. So we'll be like, okay, next week we've got stop and go, guys. Let's get as much footage as we can, and we'll use that in the video. So there'll be an introduction, some explicit teaching around this is how you find the word. This is the word. And an adult will go through and do a few perfect models of playing an activity with stop and go. And then let's see what room 5 did with stop and go. And then we go over to the footage with room 5, and they get to see themselves, and everyone else gets to see room 5 and go, I saw you on MeTV is probably the most commonly said phrase around our school, because everyone's going, I saw you on MeTV. I saw juniors this week. Juniors on MeTV. That's what everyone's talking about. So we have numeracy, phonics, core words. We have science. We have Professor Waiki Kamukau, who does our science. We have somebody who, Dr. Featherbottom, covers social safety, which covers personal hygiene, feelings, emotions. Also, we cover feeling safe and feeling unsafe, which is very, very important, and independence skills. We have Cyber Girl, who does cyber safety, which is another really important concept. And yeah, it's just a really nice way to build in some explicit teaching and also those lovely peer models.
Yeah, and the kids are part of creating the videos. And sometimes they star in the videos?
Yes, we also, one of our senior students has his own segment and he goes and interviews people. So he does a very tough, hardline interview where he'll burst into your office and you sit down and he talks to the principal and says, so, Scott, what's it like being a principal? And tell me all about the different things you do. What did you do at uni to get here? What did you do at school to get here? What things are you interested in? Do you have any kids? So he'll do
Sounds great.
He's like our roving photographer. We have someone else who goes and interviews people about their pets. So it's very, very staff and student-oriented.
It's behind a firewall, though, right? Meaning only the families in your school and your kids get to see these videos at the current time, right? It's not like you can go on YouTube and we can all watch it.
No, correct. It's only available to our staff and students, and it's a privacy issue. Mm-hmm. If you do go to the MeTV website, there are some examples there that the creator has put up and some of the original examples. A few schools do publish them. We choose not to. Mm-hmm. But there should be quite a few examples out there now.
So if a listener was like, that sounds kind of interesting, and I've got a wacky staff, and I could be the numeracy witch, or I could be, what was one of the name of?
Professor Waiki Kamukau.
Yes, and Professor Featherbottom.
Dr. Featherbottom.
Dr. Featherbottom, and then Candy.
Princess Cora.
Princess Cora, but Candy?
Oh, Chip Candy.
Chip Candy, yeah.
Chip Candy, who teaches you about healthy eating. And he has historically been a big favourite. Mm-hmm.
And Chip Candy is, what does he teach again?
He talks about making healthy choices with food.
But I mean, what class does he teach?
Oh, he is our maintenance guy. So he takes a lot of students out and around, and they do mowing. They go pick up hardware supplies, go get a sausage at Bunnings because they're tradies. So he does all that stuff, fixes up all the bikes, and he's also a TV star.
That's fantastic. You get the entire staff involved. Right?
Absolutely, everybody's involved.
So that sounds great. So there's a lot of opportunity there for people to kind of mimic that and say, we could do something like that in our school.
Yeah, so if you do go to the MeTV website, and there's also some links in there and there's some information out there, I can give you the links to it.
Yeah, we can definitely put those right in the show notes.
Yeah, a lot about video self-modelling, the evidence behind it, and how it links with school-wide positive behaviour support, which I think is it's a thing here as
Definitely
well. It started over here. So the links between video self-modelling and SWPBS.
So you only have a couple more weeks left here in the United States. You're going to go spend some more time learning from people who are doing AAC, right? Teaching it. And
yes, that's the hope.
How are you collecting notes, and what are you going to do with all that information besides just take it back?
I've been crazily writing everything down. So we've had all these conversations and I've gone, I wish I was recording that because I could remember it for later. So I'm actually going to be compiling a couple of blog posts on behalf of Liberator, who is the printer-on-care company in Australia, the Australian arm of that. So I'll be just trying to write down any really golden nuggets of information that I get as I go along, and that'll be posted on their website.
Awesome. Well, all the best. I can't wait to read them. And as soon as we see when they're posted, we'll be sharing them like crazy on our Facebook page. So any last final thoughts?
From working with parents and working with teachers, and even just my own learning, one of the really big things with using AAC is a feeling of self-efficacy. So feeling like you can give it a go, feeling like you're not going to be an absolute failure when you try it. Because I think that's a really big barrier for a lot of people. This is a completely new thing. Maybe I've only got one student on it. Maybe I've never seen it before. It's completely different setup to everything I've seen before. But having really good training and coaching, leading to feelings of self-efficacy, like I can do this, is one of the most powerful things. Having a success with a student just boosts you on so much further. And so giving people as many opportunities to be successful as possible, I think, is the greatest thing you can do for supporting them.
Awesome. Well, Eleanor, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
It's okay. Thanks so much for having me.
Anytime. Come
Not
on
just
back.
here at your house.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else wants to come stay with us? Come on over. We'll talk AAC at the kitchen table. And we've totally enjoyed having you here, and hope you come back.
No, I'm sure I will. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Talking with Tech. What did you think, Rachel? What did you think of that interview?
I loved it. And honestly, it's so rare, I find, to be in a room with another AAC specialist. I think that it's just so fun to kind of geek out on AAC stuff, because as the specialist, we're kind of not always around other AAC people. So I think it was really cool to listen to your conversations, and I'm jealous. I want somebody to follow me around and I can talk about AAC stuff all day long.
Well, maybe if we got enough people to participate in the contest that we have. Well, it's not really a contest. What is it? It's like a challenge, right? It's a challenge.
Yes.
It's
a challenge to get 100 reviews on iTunes. So right now, our producer has informed us we have 31. So we have 69. I don't even know if that's the right number. I'm really bad at math. We have so many to go. So please go on and leave us a review. If you like our podcast and you like what we do, we're really trying to get to 100 by 2019, so the end of the year. It's September right now, so we have a few months to go. And I'm going to keep you posted on how far along we're coming in this challenge and how many people have given us reviews. So please go on iTunes and rate us so we can meet our challenge.
Yeah, I think you can do that right from your phone. I mean, it can be like giving a number of stars. Does that count as a review, or do people really have to type text in? What's the criteria here, Rachel?
I'm pretty sure they can just click how many stars. So give us the amount of stars that you like. But I love reading all the comments. We've had some really wonderful reviews where people tell us very specific things about what they like. So I would just love to hear your feedback, because the more we hear from you guys, the more we can tailor what we do to your interests. And if there's something that you love that we do, we'll keep doing it. If there's something that you don't like that we're doing, or maybe there's something you think we could be doing more of, we would just love to know. So be more specific. I think that's my goal. But at the end of the day, I'll take whatever I can get. So if you just want to go on and click 5 stars or 4 stars or whatever you think, that would be great too.
And while you're there, feel free to subscribe so you don't miss any sort of future episodes that come out. And this way you'll get everything right to your podcast feed. So that's hit the subscribe button down at the bottom of the podcast app, or you can do it right from iTunes.
So for Talking with Tech, I'm Rachel Madel, joined by Chris Bugay, and we will talk to you guys next week.